All right. Well, hey, Evan, I appreciate you taking some time. I know you're at a location on a photo shoot down at Coste. So thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, I'm Evan Crawford. I work with Benchmark Resorts and Hotels. I've recently gone through a merger with Pyramid Hospitality, and I oversee field marketing for our collection of independently managed properties. Yeah.
Wonderful. Super. Hey, I appreciate you taking some time. Hey, you and I have had quite a few conversations on this very topic that we're going to broach on today. In fact, I went back and looked at our notes. We put together some very compelling things to talk about back in September of 2016. I can't think of anything more important or in terms of an opportunity than talking about the concept of the humanization of hotel marketing. So could you tell us about what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it and that different brands do it, and there's different applications, but I think in general, it's just, applying authenticity and a persona to your brand or the marketing of your brand. So, it's just in general, I don't think people want to hear from a corporation. They want to hear from people they can identify with. And that's how messaging resonates. And so I think in general, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Good take on that. So, we'll go a little bit deeper. And why do you think that's important anyways?
Well, like I said, I think, that's how messaging resonates. I mean, when we communicate in general, we don't want, just think about any type of communication that we do, whether it's in business or in our day-to-day lives. We want interpersonal communication. We don't want to feel like we're talking to something automated, talking to something that we don't feel like is listening, or having messaging being thrown at us that we don't feel like is authentic to us. That's just not how human communication works. And yet, for the most part, the communication we get from brands is very much in that space where they're just, it's outbound communication, telling us to buy something, telling us why we should like something, but without enough authenticity to it, giving us ways for that messaging to resonate with us personally.
Yeah, no, great. That's great explanation. I just thought about that example. I don't know if you've seen that. It was socially circulating on Twitter for a while, but the difference between Elon Musk's personal Twitter followers versus Tesla. And, it's people want to connect with him personally, or a figure like that, much like a person and a brand. So leveraging the power of that, right?
Yeah, sure. For Tesla, maybe for better or worse.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
The jury may still be out, but you're right. I mean, the messaging coming from Elon or Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg, and a couple of those are horrible examples because they don't really represent their companies very well in some cases. But,
good point.
Yes. But yeah, people want to hear from those figureheads, and I think, as it relates to hospitality, it doesn't always have to be CEO or a figurehead or that chief executive of the company. Heck, sometimes it doesn't have to be a real person. It just has to be a persona and someone and a personality or a voice that represents the brand or the concept you're promoting in a meaningful way.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. In fact, one of the things I regret not doing in college is the whole concept of psychology, right? So there has to be something about us, human nature, that draws us to human, and feeling that it's that relationship, right? And maybe it's that whole concept of we can relate to people one-on-one. We thirst to have those those deep, meaningful relationships versus a brand which you feel that's maybe not approachable? Is that, am I headed down the right road here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know much about psychology. My brother was a psychology major. I was a communication guy, which I think is just the easiest way to get a degree. But I did learn a few things, about human communication and some of the simplest communication theory is about interpersonal communication theory is about reciprocation and peeling back the layers of the onion, and there's give and take in any human interaction, where I tell you something about me, and then I want you to reciprocate and tell me a similar level of disclosure about yourself. And I think there is opportunity to create those engagements if you have the bandwidth and the ability to engage in that way.
Right.
Where a brand or this persona that's representing is getting as personal as a brand can get, right? And talking about themselves, and asking their followers or their customers to engage with them and tell them a little bit about themselves. But we talk about like privacy and guest data and things, like so often we're just like, hey, give us all your information, and and there's no hand holding through that process. There's no we don't meet each other first. We just say, give me your social security number so I can get all the data on you and then market to you. So I think if we applied some of those basic interpersonal communication techniques to our marketing strategies, it can be pretty powerful.
So are you saying that before you ask a woman's hand in marriage, you got to kind of go through a dating process, perhaps?
Yeah, except for that Married at First Sight reality show. I guess that's an exception to that.
Yeah, I wonder what well, I put into marketing terms, the ROI or the retention rate on those would be, right?
Yeah, for
not
sure.
Real high.
Yeah, well, and hey, what an awesome parallel that is, because you might get them once, but that relationship's not going to last. They're never going to come back, and it's going to cost a heck of a lot more to acquire a new customer than it is to get a current customer to come back and purchase from you again. That
is a really good point. So let me ask you, one thing you just said that triggered some thoughts about it. We in travel for the last couple of years, there's been a lot of buzz about influencers, right? So having somebody, I saw a smile on your face, somebody else come into your property experience and helping tell the hotel story from their perspective. So they're, in a sense, that's a little bit of that similarity. Almost, it feels like it's kind of a half-hearted way that they haven't committed fully, but they're letting somebody else kind of do that. Can you broach on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I know a lot of these individuals want to be content creators now. They don't want to be called influencers, but yes, I think it can be a very powerful way of bridging that gap and having an authentic voice if that influencer is vetted properly and is their demographics and their following are authentic. They have a strong engagement rate, and their followers match the demographics of your property or brand or product, whatever it is you're promoting. But oftentimes what you see is it's just chasing after a follower account and trying to reach as many eyes. There's an application of the same principles of the shotgun approach that we see applied to other marketing techniques, whether it's email or perhaps, whatever the avenue is, and applying that same thing to influencer marketing is also not effective. So I think you still have to make sure that individual who's going to come experience your property, it still has to be authentic. And that is the authenticity, I think, is the most important thing with any of this. I
couldn't agree with you more. I think as consumers, we're on a heightened awareness for lack of transparency, and I think people are now looking out, like immediately, especially I had the conversation of looking at traditional advertising. People are so skeptical now. And that's one of the reasons why I reached back out to you, because I think even more now than ever, that authenticity and too much technology and using automation and things, people can see that now from a mile away, right? So yeah, I think that's, it's important that if you do leverage these strategies, that it's done in a very meaningful, and you're leading with your heart, and you can tell when that comes out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even the automations, I mean, I think those things can be done effectively, to create efficiencies, but it can still be authentic. I mean, as long as it's done in a way that adds value to the customer's journey and isn't just there for the purpose of preventing the individual from speaking to a real person. And that's oftentimes what you'll see. It's like you get these automated messages directing you to different places just to try to, be the stopgap to prevent you from calling to talk to a live body or to message a live body.
Or go to yell.
Yeah, but I mean, heck, there's a lot of automated messaging services out there that are so good now that you can complete whatever it is, or you can interact with the brand or the product in a meaningful way to accomplish your goal and have a really positive experience throughout that process. So I just think it just has to be thoughtful, all of these things.
Yeah, I agree. And giving the consumer the opportunity to give them the choice on how they want to have that communication, right? Not necessarily forcing technology down it, but sometimes people want to, rather than somebody calling them, I'd much rather be able to do it on my own terms, but I know thoughtfully the company they care about what I think. I can see that's an automated message, but they're giving me the control. They're giving me, rather than being interrupted by a phone call I don't necessarily want to take.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there are some decent examples of, and maybe not, quite honestly, I haven't seen a something exceptional in our industry, but there are some examples of those that are trying to humanize the brand. Anything come to mind?
So I was, we kind of prepped me for some of these questions, and yeah, you'd never do that. So I was thinking through this, and one of the best examples that is someone that I follow and engage with on social media is, I don't know if you've seen on through Celebrity Cruises, Captain Kate McHugh.
I have not.
I don't know if you've seen her content. She creates awesome content. She is one of the captains of one of the celebrity ships.
Nice.
And it's just basically her journey along, as an employee, as a captain of the ship. It's pretty authentic content. I have to assume it's fully sanctioned by celebrity and promoted by celebrity. I don't know that to be the case, but I would assume it is. Either that or celebrity gives her, free reign to do as she pleases. I don't know. But regardless, it's really well done. And I can tell you that I do not engage with Celebrity Cruises as a brand, but I am aware of Celebrity Cruises and the things they are doing because of her. And so that's one of there's a lot of examples, but that's one of the better ones that I've seen, at least as of late, and something that I engage with personally. So I think that's a pretty powerful one.
That's a great example. In fact, I have to check that out for sure. In fact, that's a really good example of exactly what we were talking about in 2016. I can see how that would be very powerful way to put, it's almost that POV, right? Point of view of you're literally behind the wheel of the ship. You're along for the voyage, and you're getting up close and personal. And that's, everybody wants to be behind the velvet rope and be back, rubbing elbows and from that perspective, and not necessarily be part of the general public, so to speak. And so, did I ever show you this book that going for my third read, because every time I see it on my shelf, but it's.
I thought you were about to tell me that you were releasing a book and you wanted me to write the foreword. So
that's coming next year, but. Yeah. the most human company wins. And that's been that whole mantra since you and we've picked up this conversation. And I diving deeper into this, I certainly would love to explore this conversation a bit further. But I wanted to check in with you just to kind of get our wheels turning on this, to have, in the hopes that we can have a kind of a 2.0 on this. But before we break, do you have a Evan Crawford tip or takeaway you can leave our audience with?
A tip or takeaway? I mean, I really think it goes back to, the authenticity piece and just, having a unique voice, so, I mean, you, whether it's social media or any channel out there, website copy, and, I'm speaking and I'm not, in all cases speaking for myself, because, I work with properties that we have a lot of room for improvement in this regard. That's just the reality of it. But I really think the goal should be, to have a unique voice. Like almost, think to yourself, if you're not able to have a Captain Kate, who's a true human being, who's an individual that can represent your brand in that way, then, you have to kind of imagine if your brand were a human, what would they sound like? What would the things what would they say? And then when you're communicating out to the public, whether it's actually creating this persona as an individual that's kind of made up, or just in the way you communicate from the brand, using that voice. So it's something that people can identify with, they get used to, they kind of understand how you sound. So often we talk about things in like brand style guides, like brand voice and things like that, but they're more related often to like ad copy and ad copy, and and then you get into your colors and how things make you feel and all this stuff, but right. How your tertiary color makes you feel, I don't know, I don't really get into all that stuff. I know you're a creative director guy, so you probably do.
Recovering. Yes.
Yeah. But I think you can take that a step further and think about your Instagram captions. Think about when you respond in a direct message to someone or respond to a comment, what does that sound like, and how are we communicating with individuals, and is that how the brand would sound when they communicate back? Because a lot of this stuff gets really generic, and again, it goes back to efficiency and just kind of responding, who's responding, all the stuff. Right. It's not easy, but that should be the goal, is to make it authentic, give yourself a voice, and I think that wins the day if you're able to accomplish that, or even get close.
Yeah, no, actually, you brought up a really good point. And if us as marketers took the time to go through and go back to the basics and put together a real comprehensive brand strategy, and I know you'd mentioned, oftentimes it has to relate to the colors and whatnot, but if you did the value proposition exercise correctly and you built the pillars, it would give you at least a sense of who this person was. So at least if your values were integrity or whatever the case may be, you could craft your messaging, your comments around at least some sort of overall guidance, right?
Well, in defense of the branding agencies that I just gave a hard time to about tertiary colors, I think they do give us those tools through the brand pillars and things about our mottos or our brand voice, and all those things are there. It's whether or not we take those things and apply them beyond a print ad. Like if you look at a brand's ad they pull in travel and leisure, if they're still doing that, then you'll probably see the brand style guide come through, because that's what it's based on. But if you take the what used to be considered secondary channels, where are actually our primary tools for communication with our customers, like social media or our website landing pages, things like that, that's what people are actually engaging with us on a regular basis, usually we're not doing a good enough job of applying those standards across those channels and using the voice there. Normally it's, you get some social media coordinator, an agency, or someone who's managing those things and crafting the content, and it gets generic and repetitive, and and again, not easy, but if we can do that well, then it can be a heck of a lot more successful for sure.
Yeah, actually, you brought up another great point, and it got me thinking is, based on these new what used to be afterthoughts of communication channels, which are now the primary channels, should branding agencies weave in another layer of the brand strategy exercise that takes into consideration even aromas and things like the voice and things to give it that other 5 dimensions of the emotions, right? And it's not just a visual element, but even like background soundtracks, that type of thing. Because, obviously creating short form video, in fact, that's one of the great conversations I had with Adia, with Chris, in this new digital trend of video, and in particular short form video. Audio being part of those touch elements, is weaving that into the video, should be also another consideration that hoteliers and marketers should really consider. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I work with one hotel, and we were running some content, and oftentimes with this hotel we work with an agency to help us craft social content, and they did a reel that was really fast cuts. It was in their defense, they were jumping on a trend, and that's the kind of the name of the game. You try to jump on these trends because you get more engagement and all that stuff, and it's good. Our owner saw it and rightfully said that it wasn't representative of the way the property feels. And the way that was said, that resonated with me, and he was totally right, 100%. Because this place is about serenity, and it's this escape, and the trend that was jumped on was very excited, and it fast, and it just didn't match the way the property feels. It was a fun little reel, but that doesn't matter if it's not an effective representation of your product. Right. So
it's not fulfilling that promise, right? Because if it did work, it created engagement, you got some people excited about it, they went to experience it, wasn't what they thought, they ended up leaving, and probably maybe it didn't live up to whatever expectation that they had. Perhaps it ends up on the back end of a TripAdvisor review. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey man, as always, I always enjoy our conversations, and I'm looking forward to following up with you soon. I appreciate your time on this, man. Take care.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to reconnect, Cory. Good timing too. My computer battery's going dead, so I got my swim trunks on. I think I'm going to go paddle out to the wreck here at Coste and enjoy the Florida sun for a little bit. So thank you for the time. Appreciate it. Good talk.
You too, man. Enjoy your trip.
All right. See you, Cory.
All right, brother. Take care.